This video tutorial will cover best practices for taking a Brightfield image. To begin, launch the software and choose the color profile. Then, let's try to get a live image up. On the Acquire tab, from the Device Command Sequence dropdown, choose Camera or Brightfield to send the light over to your camera. Then, turn on a live image by clicking the Live Image button. Hopefully you'll be able to see an image now. If not, you might need to turn up the light level on your scope or adjust some of the camera controls. Let's go over to the Workspace tab and set up our workspace. We'll need a few different tools open for this. First, I'm going to turn on the macro view. The macro view is a nice overview of your entire data file. Next, I'll turn on the Z meter. The Z meter is really helpful when you're focusing because it tells you if you're going up or down. The next tools that I need are the camera controls. Under Acquisition Tool Panels, click on Show All and the software will open all of them. For Brightfield work, you generally don't need the multi-channel control window, so we can close that one. I'll also need the Image Organizer window. The Image Organizer window is a list of all images that you've taken, and it lets you quickly and easily save them. Any of these windows you can click and drag to move around and dock on the tops or sides of your windows. You can also dock these windows over top of each other if you click this center area here. That'll form a tabbed interface that you can then go back and forth between. Click and drag the tab to undock the window. Typically, you'll want to get a nice live image and get everything set up and situated at low magnification, and then go up to the magnification that you want to take this image at. As with everything else you do in the software, the first thing that you want to do once you've got your windows open and a live image up is use the joystick to move around, and then click to mark a reference point. Since we're just taking a few images and I don't plan to save this data file, you can set an arbitrary reference point for anywhere. Just click. This live image looks good, but that's not always the case. Sometimes you'll see that your image will be too dark or too bright. There's a few different ways to fix that. There's a light control on the side of your microscope. You can use that to turn the light level up or down, like this. You can also do the same thing with the camera settings window. The light level on your microscope, of course, affects what you see in the eyepieces and what the camera's getting. The camera settings window affects only the brightness in the camera image. For Brightfield work, there's really no reason to change gain or binning or offset. The only control that you should really change is the exposure time. A lower exposure time is going to give you a more narrow camera histogram that has less dynamic range. A higher exposure time will give you a broader camera histogram, but be careful, it's pretty easy to saturate your image. That looks like this. Most people can see that an image that's solid white is saturated, but there are a lot of edge cases. You can turn on Clip Detect in the camera histogram, and this will color only pixels that are solid white as red. It makes it easy for you to spot the saturation. Turn down your exposure time until the image isn't saturated. Ideally, you're shooting for something that looks like this, with a histogram that takes up about 2/3 to 3/4 of the camera histogram window. The automatic checkbox in the camera settings window will try to automatically set your exposure time to take up most of the camera histogram and to give you a good broad dynamic range. Sometimes when you're doing Brightfield work, you'll see that your image is kind of a bluish or greenish color. Oftentimes, this is because there's a filter cube in the light path. Make sure that you don't have a filter cube there. Assuming that your light path is clear, your white balance may be off. In the camera settings window, white balance is this little WB button right here. Click on white balance, and then the cursor will turn into a little box. Click and drag an area that should be white, and the camera will use that as a reference to white balance the rest of the image. Once you've got your histogram dialed in and your white balance looking good and your exposure time that you're happy with, it's time to actually take an image. The image acquisition window right here will let you do that. Just click on Acquire Single Image, and it will take that image. Now, a couple things happened once I took that image. You'll see that the live image window is no longer actually a live image anymore. It's showing you that picture that you just took. You can also see that the macro view window shows that image. The image also shows up here in the image organizer as an unsaved image. Let's do a couple things. First, let's save the image. To save the image, you can use the image organizer. Move your mouse over this button, it looks like a little disk, and click it to save all checked images. There are two formats that I recommend using. One is MBF JPEG 2000 file. If you're planning to bring these files back into Stereo Investigator or NeuroLucida and work with them later, MBF JPEG 2000 is a great format. It's small, the compression is really good, it's fast to open, and it includes a lot of metadata, like where this file was originally taken, what camera was used, what microscope was used. There's another great format as well though. TIFF, make sure you don't get confused with MBF TIFF. Regular TIFF is a great format for taking into Photoshop or another program like that, third-party software. TIFF files tend to be a lot bigger than the JP2 MBF files, so stick with those if you're concerned about disk space. Type a name for your data file, and then click Save. Now, let's take another image. To do that, we need to go back to Live Image. From the Acquire tab, I'll choose Live Image again to turn the camera back on. And now, I should be able to use the joystick. If the joystick's not working, go to Move and turn on Joy Track. Use the joystick and move around, and let's take another image. To do that, just like before, I'll click on Acquire Single Image. Now, in the macro view, we can see both of our images, and the new image is showing up in the image organizer as an unsaved image. You can zoom in or out, and hopefully your images will line up. When you zoom in, you can either click to zoom in, or click on Zoom In and then click and drag a box. That will let you zoom in to whatever area you like. Note that you can also hold the Shift key on your keyboard and use the scroll wheel on your mouse to zoom in and out. Let's go back to Live Image mode. Acquire, Live Image. Use the joystick to move around just a little bit more, and let's take one more image. Now let's say we want to save only this image, but not this one. You can tell which is which by toggling the visibility of those images off and on with the little I button. Let's save only one of those. We'll uncheck the one that we don't want to save. That is, Save Only Checked Images, and then we'll click on the Save Checked Images button right here. Just like before, type in your file name, and then click on Save. Now let's say we wanted to add a scale bar to one image. Let's make only that image visible and click to select it in the image organizer. I can choose Move, and then Zoom In, and let's zoom in on that image. Now, under the Publish tab, I'll choose Scale Bar. Type in your settings here. Let's make it 200 microns long, and let's make it a black scale bar. If you have Show Label on, it's going to show microns, and if you have Show Units on, it's going to show 200. We'll click OK, and then we'll click to place the scale bar. Now, if we go back to the Trace tab, you can use Select Objects. By default, your scale bar is just like any other tracing, and you can right-click and move it around, and it's not actually part of the image yet. But if you're in Select Objects mode, you can select that scale bar, and then right-click and choose Embed into Image. You'll get a message that says, do you really want to do this? Click OK, and the scale bar will become part of the image. Okay, let's go back to a live image, and then there's a couple of options that I'd like to talk about. If you select File, and then Hardware Setup, Camera, you can turn off or on Fit Video in Window. With this option turned off, 1 pixel on the camera becomes 1 pixel on the monitor, which usually means that your image is going to be a lot more zoomed in. Now, if I acquire an image in this mode, the image that I take is going to be a lot bigger than that preview image was. Most people like to have File, Hardware Setup, Camera, Fit Video in Window turned on when they're imaging so that the preview more accurately reflects the image that you're going to get. Sometimes, especially if you have a window docked, you may see there's a black area on your screen. You can click and drag to resize your windows and change that black area, but it's safe to ignore it. That black area is just like your TV displaying a 16:9 image even though the TV only has a 4:3 aspect ratio. It's totally fine and just ensures that the image that you see on the screen reflects how your tissue actually looks on the slide. One other option that's really nice when you're doing a lot of imaging work is the ability to save images automatically as they're acquired. If I choose File, Preferences, Imaging, I can turn off or on save images when they're required. Just pick a format and a folder and it will automatically save your images. Let's go up to higher magnification and take just a couple more images. Here, I'm using the joystick to move around, but it's pretty sensitive. I find it easier at higher magnification to use the arrow keys to move around instead. You can choose move and then press left, right, up, or down. You can also press this little gear button and change how far they move. By default, 25% of the screen size seems about good. Make sure to do color illumination if you haven't already. I can use the joystick to move around, and I can click on Acquire Single Image just like I did at lower magnification. But often, when you're at higher magnification, you don't want just a single field of view. If you've purchased the Image Stack module, there's an easy way to take images on top of each other and then to view a projection image or to view them in 3D. To do that, click on Options here. I think most people that are taking image stacks usually like to specify the top and the bottom. Choose Use the Set button to specify both the top and the bottom of your image stack, and then, in live image mode, use the focus knob on your joystick or microscope to focus up, looking at the Z meter, that's this bar, to tell which direction up is. Click on Set Top. Then repeat the process to find the bottom of your image stack. Specify a distance between images, and then click on Acquire Image Stack to take that stack. Stacks can acquire quickly, or they can take a long time. It depends how big or small they are. Down at the bottom of the screen, there's a little progress bar that tells you how long it's going to take to acquire that stack. Once the stack has been acquired, you can go into the 3D view to view it. Choose Workspace, 3D Visualize, and you'll be able to view and rotate your entire image stack. You can also use the scroll wheel on your mouse to zoom in and out on it. In the Image tab, you can also turn on Minimum Intensity Projection to view a flattened projection image of that stack.